Atif adjusted his glasses as he stared at the list in his phone. Rice, milk, detergent, and instant noodles. The fluorescent lights of the supermarket flickered slightly above him, reflecting off the polished floor. It was a quiet Saturday evening, the kind of peaceful hour he loved, away from the towering glass walls of Malik Enterprises, away from the impossible standards of his boss, Zara Malik. He pushed his cart lazily, humming under his breath, dressed in a worn hoodie and faded jeans, looking like any other average man trying to stretch his paycheck till the end of the month. He reached for the cheaper brand of coffee, debating between price and flavor, when a soft voice caught his ear. He turned instinctively, and froze. Just 2 aisles away, wearing a sleek black coat and diamond earrings that shimmered under the lights, was Zara Malik. His CEO, the woman whose very presence could silence a meeting room full of executives. She wasn't supposed to be here, not in this ordinary store surrounded by discount tags and grocery carts squeaking down the aisle. For a moment, neither of them moved. Zara's gaze locked with his, sharp yet strangely curious. She tilted her head slightly, as if trying to recognize if this was really the same man who usually stood beside her in crisp suits, taking notes and managing her endless calendar. Atif's throat went dry. He fumbled with the coffee jar and nearly dropped it. "Mr. Atif," she said softly, walking closer, her heels clicking against the tile floor. "I didn't expect to see you here." Atif tried to smile, his voice shaky. "Just getting a few things, ma'am." Her eyes wandered to his cart, filled with instant noodles, discount cereal, and a few dented cans. Her lips curled into what looked like a faint smirk. "You really do live simply," she murmured. "I thought someone who works directly under me would have more refined taste." Atif laughed nervously, not knowing what to say. "I guess I save refinement for the office." Her eyes softened for a brief second, but then something unreadable crossed her face, a mix of amusement and something darker. "It's refreshing," she said finally. "Seeing you like this, real." Atif didn't understand what she meant, and the silence between them stretched uncomfortably. He quickly grabbed his items and nodded respectfully. "Well, I should be going. Have a good evening, ma'am." He hurried toward the checkout counter, heart thudding. The last thing he wanted was to make a fool of himself in front of her, especially outside work, where he had no professional mask to hide behind. He packed his groceries into a paper bag, grateful that the awkward encounter was over. But when he stepped into the cold parking lot, the sound of heels clicking behind him stopped him in his tracks. He turned around, startled. Zara stood there, her breath visible in the chilly air, her expression unreadable. "Leaving so quickly?" she asked. "I didn't want to bother you," he replied carefully. She took a step closer, her eyes glinting under the dim parking light. "You know, Atif," she began slowly, "in the office, you always look so composed. So controlled. But out here, you're different." He frowned slightly, unsure where this was going. "Different how?" "Human," she whispered, her tone suddenly low, intimate. Then she leaned closer, her perfume wrapping around him like a fog, and said words that made his stomach drop. "Be my boyfriend, or lose your job." For a second, he thought he'd misheard her. The world around him blurred, the sound of cars, the distant chatter, the soft hum of streetlights. She looked deadly serious, her eyes not blinking. Atif tried to laugh it off, thinking it must be a joke, but the cold intensity in her expression told him otherwise. I don't understand," he stammered. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm very serious," she said, her voice low and controlled. "You have till tomorrow to decide." Then, without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving him standing under the flickering light, clutching his paper bag and wondering if his quiet, predictable life had just shattered in a single, terrifying moment. The next morning, Atif sat at his desk earlier than usual, staring blankly at his computer screen. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, but his mind was spinning so wildly that he could barely type a word. Every tick of the office clock sounded like a countdown. The whisper from last night still echoed in his ears, "Be my boyfriend, or lose your job." He wanted to believe it was a cruel joke, a misunderstanding, anything but what it sounded like. But deep down, he knew Zara Malik wasn't a woman who said things she didn't mean. When she finally entered the building, the atmosphere shifted, as it always did. The elevator doors opened, and her heels struck the marble floor with perfect rhythm. Employees straightened their backs, greetings echoed, and the air filled with the scent of her perfume, crisp, expensive, and intimidating. Atif lowered his gaze and pretended to be absorbed in his work, hoping she'd pass by without saying a word. But she didn't. Her voice, calm yet commanding, cut through the office chatter. Atif, in my office. Now. He stood slowly, feeling every eye on him as he followed her inside. She closed the door behind them and leaned against her desk, watching him with unreadable eyes. You didn't answer me, she said simply. Atif swallowed hard. Ma'am, I thought maybe you weren't serious about what you said yesterday. Her expression didn't change. I'm always serious. He took a deep breath, his palms sweating. With all due respect, Ms. Malik, what you're asking for isn't right. I work for you. I can't. He trailed off when her sharp eyes narrowed. She walked closer, the click of her heels echoing in the silence. Do you know how many people want your position, Atif? How easily I could replace you? Her voice wasn't raised, but it carried an icy authority that froze him in place. You're smart, loyal, and efficient. But loyalty should go both ways, don't you think? He felt cornered, trapped between fear and disbelief. I've done nothing but my job, ma'am. You can't threaten me over something like this. Oh, I can, she said quietly, almost sadly. And I will, if I have to. For a moment, her tone shifted. The arrogance faded, replaced by something more vulnerable. She turned away, gazing out the window at the city below. Do you know what it's like, she murmured, to have everyone around you want something from you? Money, power, favors. No one ever wants you. Atif blinked, unsure how to respond. This wasn't the ruthless CEO he saw every day. This was someone lonely, maybe even broken. She turned back to him, eyes glistening faintly. I'm not asking for love. I'm asking for company. A face beside me that doesn't fake a smile for my money. Just play the part. For me. Atif shook his head, trying to hold his composure. So this is about appearances. You want to make someone jealous, or... Her lips tightened. Maybe, she said softly. Maybe I just want to feel human again. The silence that followed was heavy. He wanted to walk out, to quit, to run from this tangled mess. But the thought of losing his job, the only stable thing in his life, burned in his chest. His rent, his mother's medicine, the bills stacked on his table, they all flashed through his mind. Zara must have seen the hesitation in his eyes, because she smiled slightly and picked up her phone. Dinner. 8 o'clock. I'll send you the address, she said, her tone returning to its usual command. Don't be late. He stood there, speechless, as she dismissed him with a nod. When Atif walked back to his desk, the office felt different, colder, suffocating. His coworkers glanced at him curiously, whispering. He sat down, pretending to work, but his hands trembled. That evening, when his phone buzzed, the message was already waiting. Dinner. 8 p.m. Armani restaurant. Your future depends on it. Atif closed his eyes and exhaled shakily. He knew then that the line between personal and professional had just vanished, and there was no turning back. Days passed in uneasy silence. Atif followed Zara's orders like a ghost, attending meetings, arranging her appointments, pretending nothing was wrong. But underneath his calm face, guilt and anger brewed like a storm. He couldn't tell anyone. Who would believe him if he said his CEO had threatened him into being her boyfriend? And yet, to everyone around them, they suddenly looked close, too close. It started with small gestures. Zara began calling him into her office more often, speaking in a tone softer than usual. Then came the coffee breaks together, her hand brushing against his just long enough for people to notice. By the end of the week, rumors spread like wildfire through the company. Some whispered that Atif was sleeping his way to a promotion. Others called him lucky, saying he'd caught the most untouchable woman in the city. Atif felt sick every time he heard it. The looks, the laughter, the fake congratulations, they all chipped away at his dignity. He wanted to shout the truth, but one cold glance from Zara during a board meeting was enough to silence him. Late one evening, after most of the staff had gone home, Atif was still at his desk, sorting through files when he heard raised voices coming from Zara's office. He hesitated, then quietly moved closer. Through the half-open door, he saw a tall man in an expensive suit standing across from her. His voice was angry, his tone familiar. "I can't believe you replaced me this quickly," the man snapped. Zara's voice was sharp, but there was pain behind it. "You walked out, Imran. You left me to handle everything alone. Don't come back pretending you care." Imran smirked coldly. "You think this assistant of yours is going to fix your image? Everyone in the industry knows he's just a cover. You're desperate, Zara." Atif froze. The words hit like a punch. "Cover." Zara didn't reply immediately. She stood tall, arms crossed, her jaw tight. "Get out," she said finally. Imran laughed bitterly. "You'll regret this. Those shares you hold, they'll be mine soon enough." He turned and stormed out, brushing past Atif without noticing him. Atif stood in the shadows, heart pounding. Everything suddenly made sense. The strange proposal, the forced relationship, the dinners. It wasn't about affection. It was about business. She needed to protect her reputation, to make herself untouchable while her ex-fiancé tried to take control of the company. And he was just a pawn in her game. When Zara noticed him standing there, her face drained of color. "You heard everything, didn't you?" Atif stepped inside slowly, anger shaking his voice. "You used me," he said. "You made me your shield." She looked away, eyes glistening. "It wasn't supposed to be like this." "Then what was it supposed to be, Zara?" he demanded. "You threatened my job. You made me pretend to be someone I'm not, all for your image." Her voice cracked slightly. "I had no choice. Imran wants to destroy everything I built. Investors were starting to doubt me. I needed to show I wasn't weak." Atif's chest tightened. "So you made me your weapon." She walked toward him, her cold facade breaking. "At first, yes. But then," her voice softened. "You were different. You didn't treat me like a trophy or a CEO. You actually saw me. For the first time in years, someone did." He didn't know whether to pity her or hate her. His heart ached. Not because of what she'd done, but because of how real her pain sounded. Zara reached out to touch his hand, but he stepped back. "Don't," he said quietly. "You can't fix this with a few words." Her eyes filled with tears, though she tried to hide them. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am." Atif turned toward the door, voice low but firm. "You wanted a fake boyfriend, Zara. Congratulations, you got one. But after this week, I'm done." He walked out, leaving her standing in the dim light of her office, trembling for the first time. Not as a powerful CEO, but as a woman who realized too late that in trying to protect herself, she'd lost the one person who saw her as human. The night of the company's grand gala arrived, glittering with luxury and lies. The ballroom shimmered under crystal chandeliers, filled with laughter, champagne, and the sharp scent of ambition. Atif stood near the entrance in a black suit Zara had sent him, perfectly fitted, too expensive for his modest life. He felt like an imposter. Every glance that brushed past him whispered something: envy, mockery, or suspicion. Across the room, Zara Malik was a vision of power. Her silver gown glimmered with each step, her hair swept elegantly to the side, revealing diamond earrings that caught every flash of the camera. People surrounded her, investors, journalists, board members, all praising her as if she were royalty. Yet, behind her confident smile, her eyes searched the crowd until they found him. Atif looked away, pretending to focus on his drink. He didn't want to be there, but she had insisted. One last night, she had said. After that, you're free. He had agreed, not for her, but for himself. He needed closure. The speeches began, the orchestra played, and laughter echoed. But beneath the glamour, tension pulsed like electricity. Atif noticed Imran in the crowd, watching Zara from a distance, his smirk returning whenever someone whispered in his ear. Something about it felt wrong, like a storm waiting to break. Then Zara stepped onto the stage. The lights dimmed, and silence fell. She took the microphone, her usual poise replaced by something raw and uncertain. "Good evening," she began, her voice calm but trembling slightly. "Tonight is not about success. It's about truth." People exchanged confused glances. Atif frowned. She took a deep breath and continued. "Many of you have heard rumors, about me, about my personal life, about the man standing there." Her eyes turned toward Atif. The crowd followed her gaze, murmuring. His stomach tightened. Yes, she said, her voice breaking slightly. Some of those rumors are true. I did ask Atif to pretend to be my boyfriend. I did manipulate him. I thought I was protecting my company, my image, my control, but in doing so, I became the very thing I despised, a person who uses others out of fear. The audience went dead silent. Cameras flashed. Imran's smirk vanished. Zara's eyes glistened under the lights. Atif didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve to be dragged into my battles. He showed me what honesty looks like. And tonight, I'm returning that honesty to him, and to all of you. She stepped back from the microphone, her breathing unsteady. I will be stepping down as CEO of Malik Enterprises. I've realized that power means nothing if it costs your soul. From tomorrow, I'll be taking time to rebuild, not the company, but myself. Whispers erupted around the room. Atif felt frozen. He hadn't expected this, not from her. Not the woman who once controlled every situation. As she turned to leave the stage, Zara's eyes found his again. The vulnerability there was unmistakable. She looked free. Atif moved toward her slowly, his heart pounding. The crowd parted slightly as he approached. When he reached her, she tried to smile, but her lips trembled. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly. I did, she replied, voice soft. It's the only apology you'd ever believe. He studied her face. The exhaustion, the courage, the humanity finally breaking through the armor. For a moment, the world faded. You don't need power to be loved, he said gently. Just honesty. Her eyes filled with tears. Do you think I can learn that? He smiled faintly. You already have. Without thinking, he took her hand. Not as her assistant, not as her pretend boyfriend, but as someone who saw her, truly, for who she was. The cameras flashed again, but this time neither of them cared. The applause that followed wasn't for the CEO or the assistant, it was for two people finally freeing themselves from the walls they'd built. Outside the ballroom, as they stepped into the cool night, Zara exhaled a shaky laugh. So, what happens now? Atif looked at her, his smile calm and real. Now, he said, we start from the truth. And for the first time in a long while, Zara Malik didn't feel like a millionaire trapped in her empire. She felt like a woman given a second chance at something money could never buy: peace.